Welcome back. Now, just when you thought you had seen the back of that extra Christmas weight, along comes Easter. During Easter, the desire to overindulge is high. The temptation to change the diet can be irresistible. The mouth-watering adverts on TV may see you overhaul your diet altogether, and in just a few days, your weight may easily soar without your knowledge. But how do you overcome all the chocolate, junk, and sweets around? After all, isn't it time to enjoy and have fun? Welcome to Your Health. And joining me in studio, just to give us a guideline on how to maintain our diet, is Dr. Esther Dindi, who is a medical doctor, of course, an author, and a fitness consultant. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Ashley.
Thank you very much for coming.
I'm glad to be here.
So Easter is just a day away. There's going to be a lot of eating. People are going to forget. How should we go about it, even as we celebrate?
I think what is the most important thing during this season is actually to shift something. And what do I mean? You know, I think we obsess a lot about eating over Christmas, over Easter, over birthdays, graduations, and all those celebrations, you know. Before you know it, okay, after Christmas, you added on like 2 kgs, and then your friend was having an anniversary, and the other friend was having a graduation, and all these things involve a lot of eating. I think it's high time we focus more on the fun and not the food. And that is tricky. Yes. Yeah, we need to shift from the food to the fun. Yeah. And that way you get to enjoy more time, you spend more time away from food, and you still have your food. Yeah. But that helps you to limit how much you actually consume. So focus on the fun. Look for fun things to do even during Easter. It's time to link up with friends, get some fun activities, get moving, play some games. So by the time you realize, oh, it's lunchtime, you've not been eating from morning to lunchtime continuously. So focus on fun, not food. Okay,
that is a tricky situation, especially with Kenyans, because we look forward to such things, me being one of them. And you know, there's that saying going around that eating is bae. So it's going to be very hard to sort of maintain that control. But even if we can't maintain it, how can we go about it? Of course, there are different body types. Eating is a must.
Yes, eating is a must.
How can we control it from all different body types?
We eat to live, we don't live to eat.
Yes.
And so, because food is going to be there, then now the other thing is, what are your choices? What options do you create for yourself? And that means from what you stock in your fridge, what you actually get to cook, what you have around. When you're visiting, you have no much control of what you're going to eat. But even then you can, I mean, it's just about 3 days, but I know it can be food flooding at that point.
4 days, actually.
4 days of food flooding.
Days, yeah.
That shouldn't be the case. And it boils down to creating a culture. And this means that even Easter and beyond, you can actually adjust some things. You won't be perfect. You'll mess a bit on how you're used to eating, sticking to the healthy food. There'll be probably more chocolate, more cakes and all that. But how much you consume still goes a long way to contribute to your weight gain or your health. Yeah. So in that case, before you like munch that cake or have those cookies, you probably should have some vegetables, have some fruits. I say if you really, really want something sweet, opt for fruits. When you must have the cake, please make it small. I know it takes discipline, but let me tell you, having maintained my weight for the last 2 years and being a mother of 3 and have kids in the house, they must have a bit of junk, you know. I don't want them to be miserable, so I still indulge them, but I ensure that I don't keep that in the fridge. I don't have that readily available, so we go out, shop for it, have a bit of it, and you sample out, let them pick out what they want. So you can still stick to your healthy diet even when you're surrounded by all this other food, but it's about stocking the right foods in the house. So that is what you're going to consume in plenty, so that before you reach for the wrong things, before you reach for the sodas, you still have something else in the house that's healthy that you can chew on.
All right, and of course we have different body types. Different body types respond to food differently.
Yes.
Maybe you can just take us through those body types now before we continue.
I know we've talked about this before. The body types. I think one thing we should realize is that there's hardly anyone who has the classic body type. Because by classic means, actually the classification has numbers. So if you're in one extreme, you categorize at 811 or 11. It's complex, but that's just, we have the ectomorphs, who are people who tend to be very skinny, the typical runway models who hardly ever put on. Yeah, they have small bone frame, they hardly pack on muscles, they hardly pack on mass. So those are the like really skinny. So those are the ectomorphs. Then in between we have the endomorphs who can, their body frame, their bone frame is actually kind of in the middle. They can build some muscle, not very big, and they also tend to not gain a lot of weight and also don't gain a lot of muscle. So, and then we have the endomorphs who tend to have, they're big in frame, and they have a lot of, they tend to accumulate a lot of body fat, and these ones respond very fast to carbohydrate. These are the kind of people during holidays you can end up packing on 5 kgs very easily. Why? Because during holidays we consume a lot of carbohydrates, particularly refined ones, and we consume a lot of sugars. And these ones are the kind of things that will pack on the fats on the endomorphs. So in that case, the endomorph is the kind of person who should be very wary of carbohydrates. I personally do not advocate for someone eliminating any particular food group, but it's very important for an endomorph to go extra small in portions of carbohydrates. And even then, those carbohydrates should be whole in type, as in as close to natural as possible. And most junk hardly has any fiber, lots of calories,
that is a tricky one
in nutrition. So they should focus more on healthy fats, eat some nuts, avocados, and still keep the portions moderated, and lots of veggies to fill up, and lean protein. But carbs are not good for the endomorphs. For the ectomorphs, on the other hand, who tend to be very skinny, they tend to be calorie burners, and they actually do very well with high carbohydrate kind of diets. But even then, I love to emphasize that keep it as close to natural as possible, because the highly processed foods actually do not just pile on the calories. They increase what we call inflammation. That is, you could be having high blood cholesterol, but more so if you're gaining that from foods that have a lot of trans fats. Basically, think of the processed foods and a lot of sugars. It tends to increase the inflammation. How do I put this? Is that it tends to make the blood vessels, the arteries, that is the pipes that spread blood into the body. There's an accumulation. They start to clog from the inside. The inflammation promotes that. So the kind of food that you're consuming could actually lead to inflammation, put you at risk of heart attack, put you at risk of strokes, etc.
You're scaring me. But of course,
I need to.
No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't scare me. But of course, you talked about portions.
And
of course, different body types, of course, reacts differently. And I would like to know, especially now, because we will eat. That is given.
We will eat.
So what portions should we take? If you can start now from the petite, then the mid-size.
Okay, let me put it simple before I even go to the portions. If you are overweight or obese, or you're someone who is trying to cut on weight, that just tells you you have been eating a lot. I know that sounds gross, but that's the truth. You're eating in excess of what your body needs, regardless of your body type.
And overweight is because, BMI?
Yeah, overweight is a BMI of 25 and above. So 25 to 30 is actually overweight to 29.9, 30 and above to 34.9 is actually class 1 obesity. Beyond that, class 2. Then we have the other morbid obesity that might need actually some surgical.
For the sake of those who don't know what BMI is, if you can just break it down for them.
I love to teach. So BMI just is the short form of body mass index, and body mass index is how your weight is distributed over your height. You can get calculators online. If you type it in, it will give you some things to key in, and you'll be able to get your answer. But it's very easy to calculate. So you just get your height in centimeters. Actually, let's say, like I am 174 centimeters. So that's, I'm 5'8". Anyway, that's 1.74 meters. And and my weight. So my weight, say I'm weighing 60. That's not my weight. So example, it will be 60 divided by 1.74 squared. So that will give you the BMI. So it's actually in kilograms per meter squared. So if you're between 18.5 to 24.9, then your weight is okay. But there are other things we look at. We can even go further, because you can actually be having an okay BMI, but you're packing on a lot of fat. And actually, this now goes for the ectomorphs. People who are skinny, they can accumulate a lot of body fat even when you're looking fine. So it's not you I'm talking about.
That is not fair.
So these people can actually accumulate a lot of body fat and still be within normal body weight, but they are running risks. Okay. What do I mean? You can actually have a lot of fat around your midsection, and in that case, then we take your waist-hip ratio. So that's your waist from above where the hip bone is. We call it the iliac crest. You put a tape measure that is parallel to the ground, you know, when standing. Yeah. So just very straight across and get your measurement, and then in centimeters, and the same at the widest part of your hips in centimeters. Then get your waist over your hips. Okay. If for a lady, that figure is 0.8 or more, that's the waist-hip ratio, then you're running risk for lifestyle diseases. You're running risk for type 2 diabetes,
I'm thinking of calculating mine right now.
I think you're fine. I think I've looked at many people, I've worked with many clients, and I can tell you you're always fine. Okay. Yeah. Good but to don't know. Go the wrong way. Okay. Yeah, and the other thing is, for people who are quite big, really overweight or obese, there are some who pack on a lot of weight around their hips. So interestingly, they could be obese, but their waist-hip ratio is within normal. But that does not mean that they are not running risks. Okay. So if then your waist circumference, I didn't say for men, for men, waist-hip ratio of 0.9 and above is risky. Actually at one, so, you know, men tend to be straight. Yeah, it's the same measurement. Okay. And, yeah, I've put that in my book, Hot and Healthy. Okay. Guys can get it and get to understand more. Anyway, back to the story. So if even for those people who have wider hips and very relatively lean, you know, small waists, and they're obese, if the waist circumference for ladies is 35 inches, and above, that 5 inches and above, you're running risks. Waist. Yes, waist only. So in that case, so there are times we use waist-hip ratio, but there are times we'll use waist only. Yeah, so you need an expert. Okay, all right, so back to the portions now. Yeah, back to the portions. So really, I think for an ectomorph, someone who really needs to gain weight, most of them actually struggle to eat volume. So you need frequent small meals, and in that case you need like to have a cupped handful of carbohydrates with every meal, and like the palm size portion of your lean protein, and a little bit of we use the thumb, the tip of the thumb, like if you're having butter or if you're having nuts, like really at the very cup of your palm, that would be adequate for you. And for veggies, we love to go generous, so a cupped handful is okay, or actually 2. So that's like a serving spoon. Serving spoons, scoops. For endomorphs who tend to gain a lot of weight, just because you don't want to deprive them so much, they can actually go off carbs, but I don't recommend that, like in the ketogenic diet. So they'll have like half that portion and just like 3 times a day, and then have more protein. And for men, we tend to double the portions. Okay. But again, like I said, because they're not classic body types, as in most people fall in between, you'll still have to regulate and assess, are you gaining weight or are you losing weight? And it also depends on how active you are. So this is just general guides for someone who is just not very active, actually. So so for the mesomorph, then you just need a cupped handful of your carbohydrate, just 3 or 4 times of the day, and then a palm size of your protein. That's double for a man, and now like the whole thumb size of like nuts, or if you're doing butter or whatever is your source of fats. Yeah, and that's actually about it. So the thing is, then you monitor yourself. Like if your waist-hip ratio is already off the mark, like for a lady it's 0.85 or it's 9, or you're gaining a lot of weight, then you know you still need to adjust something. And I recommend that the first thing you adjust is your carbohydrates. All right. So you start lowering it. Okay. Yeah, and because you can't lower it to really like below 1,200 calories a day, the other thing is to increase your physical activity. Okay. But before we go to the physical activity, you know, there are these people who think, I'll go eat as much
much meat, you know, as much as I can, and then I'll go drink alcohol. And then, is it true that alcohol tends to, you know, just break it down, break the fats down? Because people tend to think it is okay.
Oh my God, that's actually a myth.
Okay.
Let me tell you, for one, alcohol itself, even the distilled liquors like the vodkas, the tequilas, and you know what not. I don't do booze, but anyway, they actually have calories. You know, those ones have been distilled. They don't have much carbohydrates, but they have calories. The other thing about alcohol, before we even go to the other extra calories like the beers have and the wine and all that, is that when alcohol is in the bloodstream, it is a priority for the body to break it down, because we do not store alcohol anywhere. So what happens is that becomes the primary source of energy for the body. That's interesting. So until that alcohol is broken down, and remember, we are getting toxins with it, and the liver has to be burdened to release all that. So the alcohol becomes a priority. So in simple terms, when you consume alcohol of whatever type it is, you actually put on hold any body fat burning mechanisms, because it can't use your carbohydrate, it can't use your stored fat. It has to use the alcohol first and break it down and eliminate the toxins. Then, so for that time, you actually suspend your fat burning mechanism. So actually, for most people who are consuming alcohol, especially in excess, there's some portions that are still acceptable for okay health, but alcohol is not that thing you say, I consume to gain any health.
What are these portions? What are the okay portions? Actually,
it's a drink a day for the ladies. That's like a beer. If it's wine, it's a glass of wine that's 150 mLs. If it's whiskeys, then that's a shot. It's about 40 mLs. It really, and then but again, the beers have more carbohydrates, but the concentration of alcohol is less as compared to the whiskeys and the brandies and that kind of stuff.
You've talked about wine, and wine is known for digestion. So here you're telling us that is not the case.
Yeah, okay, it has some benefits, especially the red wine, because of there's a certain substance from the fermented, you know, they're called what? Those things. They're not berries.
The grapes.
Yeah, the grapes.
Okay.
Yeah, but you don't lose anything by not consuming it. And that's why still you have to keep the portion small, because it has very simple carbohydrates. So in a nutshell, if you're going to consume lots of beer and thinking that together with meat that you're going to burn fat, that's not actually the case. The only thing is that some people become malnourished if they drink a lot, and now we're talking about alcoholism per se. And this is because they actually start forfeiting their meals. Their priority is an addiction, becomes now the alcohol, and they forget to actually eat, and actually might not be getting certain nutrients that are good for the body. And they are at risk of dementia and many other things. So we are getting studies showing that there are many other risks as complications to alcohol, besides just the liver injury and other issues. So, and the other thing, overconsumption of meat, meat has protein, it has fat as well, especially red meat has a lot of fat intrinsically, even when you trim the fat. I love meat, but I'm very keen on how I make it. But the thing is, if you consume a lot of protein, part of it is going to be converted to carbohydrates. And I think that's something sometimes people think, okay, I have not eaten any carbs. And okay, but through the process, you lose some energy, because breaking down protein takes more energy in the body. Okay, all right. Sounds like a class.
It is, but it's a good class. Thank you very much for making time. Dr. Esther Dindi, who is a medical doctor, an author, and a fitness consultant.